The Galactic Council declared war on humanity. So we burn them all, reaches its dramatic apex as Colonel Sarah Vega leads the elite Black Eagles in a daring assault on Kepler Yard, the Council's most vital shipyard. Face to face with Ambassador Zathara, she reveals humanity's true power moments before quantum storm devices neutralize the facility, permanently shifting the galactic balance of power. The first attack came without warning. That was their mistake. Colonel Sarah Vega stood on the observation deck of Cortex headquarters, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of New Denver's defensive grid. The settlement on Epsilon Eridani had been her home for the past 3 years, ever since President Brooks appointed her commander of the Coordinated Rapid Tactical Response Force. To most colonists, New Denver was just another human outpost, a collection of gleaming domes and underground habitats housing nearly 2 million souls on the edge of explored space. To Sarah, it was much more. It was their best-kept secret. Transmission incoming from Earth Central. Colonel. Lieutenant Kira Takahashi announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. President Brooks is on Secure Channel 7. Sarah straightened her uniform. Put her through. The holographic display shifted, and President Helen Brooks's stern face materialized. Even across 11 light-years, the determination in her eyes was unmistakable. Colonel Vega, Brooks began, the slight delay in transmission adding gravity to her words. I'm afraid the moment we've been preparing for has arrived. 30 minutes ago, Ambassador Zathara broadcast the Galactic Council's declaration of war across all communication channels. Sarah's jaw tightened. For over 50 years since the First Great Alliance, humanity had maintained a fragile peace with the Council, a collective of 12 advanced spacefaring species that controlled much of the galactic arm. Relations had grown increasingly strained as human exploration vessels repeatedly violated the Council's arbitrary quarantine zones. But war, that seemed extreme, even for the bureaucratic Vorak representatives who dominated Council proceedings. Their terms? Sarah asked, already knowing the answer. Unconditional surrender within 48 hours, President Brooks replied, after which they promised to minimize casualties during their occupation of Earth and all human colonies. Sarah allowed herself a thin smile. Then it's time. Yes, Brooks nodded gravely. The Security Council has unanimously voted to activate Operation Charcoal. You have full authorization. Colonel, may God have mercy on them, because we certainly won't. The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to her executive officer. Lieutenant Takahashi, Sound General Quarters. I want all defensive systems online and stealth falcons prepped for immediate launch. Yes, Colonel, Takahashi hesitated. Should I inform civilian authorities to begin evacuation protocols? No evacuation, Sarah replied, walking toward the tactical station. New Denver was built for this day. Tell Mayor Rodriguez to activate the city's combat configuration. It's time to show the Council exactly what they've declared war against. As alarms blared throughout the base, Sarah allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. For 3 decades, humanity had been preparing for this possibility, building defenses in plain sight, disguised as civilian infrastructure, developing weapons that could bypass alien technology, and training elite forces in guerrilla warfare tactics. The Galactic Council thought they were declaring war on a modestly advanced species, barely capable of interstellar travel. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Across human space, colonial outposts shed their civilian facades, revealing energy shields and automated missile batteries. Mining stations transformed into battleships, and research facilities unveiled prototype weapons that had been developed in secret for decades. Sarah coordinated it all from Cortex headquarters, a testament to humanity's foresight. The compound, buried beneath New Denver's Central District, contained a command center that rivaled Earth's own Pentagon in complexity and security. Holographic displays showed real-time updates from across human space, tracking Council ship movements and coordinating humanity's response. "Stealth Falcons are ready for deployment, Colonel," announced Lieutenant Takahashi. "Commander Reza reports all 16 fighters are armed with quantum disruptors and ready to strike." Sarah nodded. Commander Amir Reza was one of her best officers, a brilliant tactician with nerves of steel. "Tell him to proceed with Operation First Strike. Target the Council supply lines near Proxima Centauri. I want their logistics crippled before they can marshal their main fleet." As Takahashi relayed the orders, Sarah studied the tactical display. The Council forces were gathering at predetermined rally points, clearly confident in their superior numbers. They expected humans to cower, perhaps attempt hasty evacuations or desperate, uncoordinated counterattacks. Instead, they would face a carefully orchestrated response 30 years in the making. "Colonel," called Dr. Kaito Yamamoto from the science station, "the nanodisruptors are ready for deployment. We've optimized them to target Vorak neural interfaces specifically." Sarah turned to the scientist, a slight man with intense eyes and perpetually ink-stained hands. Dr. Yamamoto had pioneered the development of nanoscale weapons designed to neutralize alien technology without causing undue harm to biological entities. His creations would be crucial in the coming conflict. "Good work, Doctor," she said. "Load them into defensive drones and prepare for deployment around New Denver's perimeter. When the Vorak landing ships arrive, I want their systems crippled before they touch the ground." "Colonel!" Takahashi's voice cut through the command center. "Sensors detect multiple hyperspace ruptures forming at the edge of the system. Council ships incoming." Sarah straightened, her mind clearing as it always did in moments of crisis. "Show me." The main display shifted to show a real-time feed from orbital sensors. The fabric of space itself seemed to tear as massive Vorak warships emerged from hyperspace, sleek, organic-looking vessels that resembled predatory sea creatures more than mechanical constructs. 27 vessels, reported the sensor officer. Configuration matches Vorak assault carriers, each one capable of deploying approximately 500 ground troops. Sarah calculated quickly. Over 13,000 troops, likely equipped with powered armor and energy weapons. A significant force, but not nearly enough to take New Denver if its defenses were fully operational. Which they were. "Defensive grid status?" she demanded. "Energy shields at full capacity," reported the defense officer. "Automated missile batteries online, drone swarms ready for deployment." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. For all their preparation, this would still be humanity's first true interstellar war. People would die today, her people. The thought brought back memories of the Epsilon incident 5 years earlier, when she'd lost half her squad during what should have been a routine exploration mission. The faces of those who died under her command still haunted her dreams. "Not again, not this time. Launch intercept drones," she ordered. "Deploy nanodisruptors in a dispersal pattern that will maximize coverage when their dropships attempt to breach the atmosphere. And get me a direct channel to Ambassador Zathara's flagship." Takahashi looked up in surprise. "Sir, you want to communicate with them?" "I want them to know exactly who they're fighting," Sarah replied. "And I want to give them one chance to reconsider." The communications officer worked quickly, and soon the aristocratic face of Ambassador Vorak Zathara appeared on the main screen. The Vorak were vaguely humanoid, with iridescent blue-green skin and elongated features that humans often found difficult to read. But even Sarah could recognize the surprise in Zathara's expression. "Colonel Vega," the ambassador said, mandibles clicking in what Sarah had learned to recognize as amusement. "How unexpected. I was under the impression that your military protocol would have you hiding in bunkers by now, not attempting to negotiate from a position of such weakness." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "This isn't a negotiation, Ambassador. It's a warning. Your invasion force is significantly under strength for the task you've assigned it. If you proceed with your attack on New Denver, none of your ships will return to Council space. Zathara's mandibles clicked more rapidly. Laughter. Perhaps bold words from a species that barely understands hyperspace travel. The Council has tolerated humanity's expansion for too long. Your repeated violations of quarantine zones have demonstrated that you are too reckless to be permitted unrestricted interstellar capabilities. Those quarantine zones contain nothing but empty space and resources you're hoarding, Sarah countered. The Council's policy of artificial scarcity might work to keep your member species in line, but humanity won't be caged. Strong words for a soon-to-be subjugated race, Zathara replied. But I grow tired of this exchange. Your defiance will make an excellent example to other emerging species who might consider challenging Council authority. The transmission cut abruptly, and Sarah turned to her officers. They're coming. All personnel to battle stations. The Vorak attack began precisely as Cortex intelligence had predicted. Dropships detached from the larger vessels, descending toward New Denver in a carefully orchestrated formation designed to overwhelm point defenses through sheer numbers. But New Denver's defenses were far more sophisticated than the Vorak anticipated. As the alien vessels entered the upper atmosphere, swarms of microscopic drones released clouds of nanobots programmed to target the neural interfaces that Vorak soldiers use to control their ships and weapons. Simultaneously, automated defense batteries launched precision strikes against the dropship's propulsion systems. The result was catastrophic for the invaders. Dropships tumbled from the sky, their pilots suddenly disconnected from their control systems. Those that managed to maintain enough control for emergency landings found themselves surrounded by Cortex strike teams equipped with weapons specifically designed to counter Vorak technology. From her command center, Sarah monitored the battle with grim satisfaction. The initial wave had been neutralized with minimal human casualties, exactly as planned. But this was just the beginning. Status of Operation First Strike, she demanded. Takahashi checked her console. Commander Reza reports complete success. Stealth Falcons hit 3 Council supply depots near Proxima Centauri. Quantum disruptors performed beyond expectations. All targets neutralized with 0 detection before impact. Sarah nodded. The Stealth Falcons were humanity's most advanced fighters, incorporating reverse-engineered Council technology with unique human innovations. Their quantum disruptor weapons were particularly effective against Vorak shielding systems, creating localized distortions in space-time that simply bypassed energy barriers. Order Commander Reza to proceed to secondary targets, Sarah instructed. We need to keep the pressure on their supply lines. As the battle continued, Sarah received reports from across human space. In the Sol system, Earth's orbital defenses had repelled an initial Council probe, destroying 7 warships with minimal damage to the planet's defense grid. Mars Colony had successfully deployed its subsurface railguns, obliterating a Council troop transport before it could establish orbit. Even the small research outpost on Europa had transformed overnight into a heavily fortified position, its supposedly civilian researchers revealing themselves as military specialists. Everywhere the Council attacked, they found not the disorganized, primitive defense they expected, but a coordinated, sophisticated response from a species that had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. By the 18th hour of the conflict, the tide had clearly turned. Council forces were in retreat across multiple fronts, their commanders apparently shocked by the effectiveness of human resistance. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Council controlled thousands of worlds across hundreds of star systems. They would regroup, analyze human tactics, and return with overwhelming force. Unless humanity struck first. President Brooks is on secure channel, Takahashi announced. Sarah straightened as the president's image appeared on screen. Brooks looked tired but determined, her silver hair pulled back in its customary severe bun. Colonel, the Security Council has reviewed your proposal for Phase 2 of Operation Charcoal. Brooks began, without preamble. It's been approved. You have authorization to proceed with the Kepler Yard assault. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The Kepler Yard was the Council's primary shipbuilding facility, located in a heavily fortified star system, nearly 30 light-years from Earth. Destroying it would cripple the Council's ability to replace the ships they were losing in the current conflict. But the facility was defended by the equivalent of 3 full battle fleets. "Thank you, Madam President," Sarah replied. "We'll begin immediately." As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her staff. "Initiate Phase 2 protocols. I want the Black Eagles prepped and ready for deep insertion within 6 hours." The Black Eagles were Cortex's elite special operations unit, trained specifically for high-risk missions behind enemy lines. Sarah had personally selected each member, knowing that the success of Operation Charcoal might ultimately rest on their shoulders. "Colonel," Dr. Yamamoto approached, holding a data tablet. "I've completed the final modifications to the Quantum Storm warheads. They're ready for deployment against the Kepler Yard facility." Sarah examined the specifications. The Quantum Storm was humanity's most devastating weapon, a missile that created a localized disruption in the quantum field, effectively shutting down all technology within its radius of effect. Unlike a nuclear weapon, it caused no long-term environmental damage, but the immediate effect on an advanced technological facility would be catastrophic. "Load them onto the stealth carriers," she ordered, "and make sure the targeting systems are calibrated for maximum effect against their primary fabrication facilities." As preparations continued, Sarah retreated to her private office for a moment of reflection. On her desk sat a small, holographic projector containing images of her former squad, the men and women who had died during the Epsilon incident. She activated it, studying their faces one by one. Captain Miguel Rodriguez, her second in command, always ready with a joke even in the direst circumstances. Lieutenant Amara Wilson, the most talented pilot she'd ever met. Sergeant Klaus Muller, whose steady hand had saved the surviving team members more than once. All gone because she had missed the signs of an ambush, because she hadn't been prepared. "Not this time," she whispered to their images. "This time, we're ready." A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, deactivating the hologram. Lieutenant Takahashi stepped inside, her expression troubled. "Colonel, we've received intelligence that Ambassador Zathara has relocated to the command center at Kepler Yard. He appears to be personally coordinating the Council's counteroffensive." Sarah considered this information. Having Zathara at Kepler Yard complicated matters. He was not just a diplomat, but one of the Council's most influential military strategists. His presence indicated how seriously they were taking the human threat. "Adjust the mission parameters," she decided. "I'll lead the Black Eagles personally. Our primary objective remains destroying the shipyard, but capturing Zathara could provide invaluable intelligence." Takahashi's eyes widened. "Colonel, with respect, Field Command regulations state that—" "I'm aware of the regulations, Lieutenant," Sarah interrupted. "But this mission is too important to delegate. The Black Eagles know me, trust me. We'll have a better chance of success if I'm on the ground with them." After a moment, Takahashi nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll make the necessary arrangements." 6 hours later, Sarah stood in the hangar bay, surrounded by the 30 men and women of Black Eagle Squadron. They were equipped with the most advanced combat suits humanity had developed, powered armor with adaptive camouflage, integrated weapon systems, and neural interfaces that allowed for instantaneous tactical coordination. "Our mission is straightforward," Sarah addressed them, her voice carrying across the cavernous space. "We infiltrate Kepler Yard, deploy quantum storm devices at key structural points, and extract before detonation. Intelligence indicates minimal civilian presence. The facility is almost entirely automated or staffed by military personnel. Nevertheless, we maintain standard ROE. No unnecessary casualties." She paused, making eye contact with each squad leader. Additionally, Ambassador Zathara is confirmed to be in the facility's command center. If possible, we capture him alive. The intelligence value would be significant. Questions. Major Elijah Washington, her second in command for this mission, stepped forward. Extraction plan if primary route is compromised? Secondary extraction points are designated here and here. Sarah indicated on the holographic display of the facility. Stealth carriers will maintain position in these coordinates, ready for immediate pickup. If all extraction points are compromised, fall back to emergency rendezvous point Delta and await rescue. With no further questions, the team boarded 3 stealth carriers, vessels designed with the latest human cloaking technology, capable of approaching even heavily defended Council installations undetected. The journey to Kepler Yard took nearly 14 hours, even using the experimental hyperspace drives that Dr. Yamamoto's team had developed. Sarah spent most of the time reviewing intelligence on the facility's defenses and coordinating with the larger human fleet that would launch a diversionary attack once the Black Eagles were in position. Finally, the navigator announced their arrival, dropping out of hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The view screen cleared to show Kepler Yard, a massive artificial structure that resembled a giant metal flower. Its petals, containing docking bays large enough to accommodate even the Council's enormous dreadnoughts. Around it swarmed hundreds of smaller vessels, patrol ships, automated defense platforms, and supply shuttles. Cloaking systems at maximum, reported the pilot. Approach vector calculated to minimize detection probability. Sarah nodded, feeling the familiar tightening in her chest that preceded combat. Proceed as planned. All personnel, final equipment check. The stealth carriers slipped past the outer defense perimeter without incident, approaching the main structure from its least guarded quadrant. Council intelligence had always considered a direct assault on Kepler Yard impossible, which had made them complacent about certain aspects of its defense. Another mistake. Drop point reached, announced the pilot. Atmospheric integrity confirmed in Landing Bay 7 Alpha. Minimal Council presence detected. Sarah activated her helmet, the display lighting up with tactical information. Black Eagles, deploy. The team moved with practiced precision, securing the landing bay within minutes. The few Vorak technicians present were quickly subdued with non-lethal neural disruptors, their communications devices disabled before they could raise an alarm. 3 teams, as briefed, Sarah ordered. Alpha team with me to the command center. Beta and Gamma teams, proceed to your designated targets and plant the quantum storm devices. Maintain calm discipline and stick to the timeline. We have 45 minutes until the diversionary fleet arrives. The teams split up, moving through the massive facility with the aid of detailed schematics provided by human intelligence assets. Sarah led Alpha Team through a series of maintenance corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where Council security would be heaviest. Contact ahead, warned Sergeant Andre Jackson, the team's point man. 6 Vorak security personnel, standard combat loadout. Sarah assessed the situation through the tactical feed. Non-lethal if possible. We need to maintain stealth as long as we can. The team deployed sonic disruptors, weapons designed to incapacitate Vorak by exploiting their sensitive auditory systems. The security team collapsed without firing a shot, quickly restrained and secured in a nearby storage room. As they approached the command center, resistance stiffened. Twice they were forced to engage in firefights with Council security forces, and though the Black Eagles' superior tactics and specialized weapons gave them the advantage, Sarah lost 2 soldiers to enemy fire. The faces of her fallen comrades from the Epsilon incident flashed through her mind, but she forced the memories away. There would be time for mourning later. Command center ahead, reported Lieutenant Devi Patel, the team's tech specialist. Heavy encryption on the door systems, working on bypass. While Patel worked, Sarah received updates from the other teams. Beta team had successfully planted their quantum storm devices at the primary power distribution nodes, Gamma Team reported resistance at the main fabrication facility, but was proceeding according to plan. "I'm in," Patel announced. "Door opening in 3, 2, 1. The massive doors slid open, revealing the command center, a cavernous room dominated by a central holographic display showing the entirety of Kepler Yard and the surrounding space. Around it stood over a dozen Vorak officers, all turning in surprise as the human strike team entered. And there, on a raised platform at the center, stood Ambassador Zathara. "Secure the room," Sarah ordered, her weapon trained on Zathara. "Disable their communications and control systems." As her team moved to comply, Sarah approached the ambassador, whose mandibles clicked rapidly in what she recognized as agitation. "Colonel Vega," Zathara said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language into English. "This is unexpected and futile. You cannot hope to escape Kepler Yard alive." Sarah removed her helmet, wanting Zathara to see her face. "We don't need to escape, Ambassador. In approximately 20 minutes, this entire facility will be neutralized by weapons your sensors can't even detect. But before that happens, I wanted you to understand something." She gestured to the holographic display, which Patel had reconfigured to show the ongoing battle. Across multiple star systems, Council forces were in retreat, outmaneuvered and outfought by human vessels they had dismissed as primitive just days earlier. "Humanity didn't want this war," Sarah continued. "We were content to coexist, to trade, to learn. But the Council's arrogance, its belief that it could dictate terms to us as if we were children, that forced our hand." Zathara's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. "You cannot possibly hope to defeat the combined might of the Council. We control thousands of worlds, millions of ships. And yet here I stand in the heart of your most secure facility." Sarah interrupted. "Your ships are being destroyed across dozens systems. Your supply lines are in ruins. And in moments, your ability to replace those losses will be gone." Before Zathara could respond, Lieutenant Patel called out, "Colonel, incoming transmission from the diversionary fleet. They've engaged Council forces at the outer perimeter." Sarah checked her chronometer. "Right on schedule. Status of the quantum storm devices?" "Beta and Gamma teams confirm all devices planted and armed," Patel reported. "Detonation in 17 minutes. Zathara's posture changed, his body language conveying something Sarah interpreted as resignation. "You have demonstrated impressive capabilities, Colonel. Perhaps the Council was hasty in its assessment of humanity's threat level." "It's a little late for that realization, Ambassador," Sarah replied. She turned to her team. "Secure the Ambassador and any senior officers. We're taking them with us. Begin evacuation protocols." As her team moved to comply, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The holographic display showed Council reinforcements arriving, dozens of warships dropping out of hyperspace near the outer perimeter. "Our window is closing," Major Washington warned. "We need to move now." Sarah nodded. "All teams, fall back to extraction points. Bring only essential prisoners." With Zathara and 2 senior Vorak commanders in custody, Alpha Team began their withdrawal. The journey back to the landing bay was chaotic, with Council security forces converging from multiple directions. Twice they were forced to change routes, as passages were sealed off ahead of them. "Beta Team reports they've reached Extraction Point 2, Patel announced. "Gamma Team is pinned down near fabrication control. They're requesting assistance." Sarah made a split-second decision. "Washington, get the Ambassador and the rest of Alpha Team to Extraction Point 1. I'll take Jackson and Wong to support Gamma Team." Washington hesitated. "Colonel, with respect." "That's an order, Major." Sarah cut him off. "Get our prisoners out. That's the priority. We'll make it to Extraction Point 3. Reluctantly, Washington complied, leading the main group toward the primary landing bay, while Sarah and her 2 volunteers headed toward the fabrication facility. They found Gamma Team entrenched behind makeshift barricades, exchanging fire with a larger force of Council security. Captain Diana Fraser, the team leader, had been wounded but was still directing her soldiers' defense. "Nice of you to join us, Colonel," Fraser managed through gritted teeth, her left arm hanging useless at her side. "We were just discussing vacation plans after this is over." Sarah smiled grimly as she took cover beside the captain. "Situation? 8 effectives remaining, 2 KIA. We've got Council forces blocking our primary and secondary extraction routes. Quantum storm devices are armed and counting down." She checked her display. 12 minutes to detonation. Sarah assessed their options quickly. "New plan. We make for auxiliary maintenance shaft K-12. It connects to landing pad 14, which should be minimally defended. Using coordinated covering fire and the last of their specialized grenades, they broke through the Council's containment effort. 2 more soldiers fell during the fighting, but the remainder of the team reached the maintenance shaft. 9 minutes to detonation," Fraser reported as they navigated the narrow passage. "Extraction vessels are being notified of our change in plans." The maintenance shaft led them to a small, automated landing pad used primarily for robotic servicing drones. As expected, it was largely deserted, the Council forces concentrating their efforts on the main landing bays. "Extraction vessel ETA 3 minutes," Jackson reported after establishing communications. "Cutting it close, Colonel." Sarah positioned her remaining forces to defend the landing pad. "We've had worse odds." The Council forces discovered their position with 5 minutes remaining before detonation. The ensuing firefight was intense but brief. The human soldiers' specialized weapons and superior tactics, again proving decisive. With just over 2 minutes remaining, their extraction vessel appeared, settling onto the landing pad amidst continued enemy fire. "Everyone aboard!" Sarah ordered, providing covering fire as her team retreated into the ship. She was the last to enter, diving through the hatch as it began to close. "All personnel accounted for," reported the pilot. "Engaging emergency thrusters. Brace for high-G maneuvers." The ship rocketed away from Kepler Yard, pushing Sarah into her seat with crushing force. Through the view screen, she watched as the massive facility receded. "Quantum storm detonation in 10, 9, 8, counted down the tactical officer. Sarah held her breath, wondering if they'd cleared the effect radius. 3, 2, 1, detonation confirmed. The view screen automatically darkened as a brilliant flash enveloped Kepler Yard. The light faded to reveal the facility still intact, but utterly dark. All its systems simultaneously disabled by the quantum disruption field. Around it, Council vessels drifted helplessly, their systems equally affected. The largest and most important shipyard in Council space had been neutralized in a single strike. "Rendezvous with the main fleet at coordinates Alpha 7, Sarah ordered, allowing herself to relax slightly. "And get me a secure channel to President Brooks. She'll want to know the mission was successful." The journey back to Earth took several days, during which Sarah received constant updates on the war's progress. With Kepler Yard neutralized and their supply lines in chaos, Council forces were in full retreat across all fronts. Several member species had already reached out through back channels, seeking separate peace agreements with humanity. When they finally reached Earth orbit, Sarah was summoned to an emergency meeting of the Security Council. President Brooks greeted her personally as she entered the chamber. "Colonel Vega," Brooks said, her usual stern expression softened by genuine warmth. "On behalf of all humanity, I thank you and your team for your extraordinary service." Sarah nodded, acutely aware of the cost of that service. "Thank you, Madam President, but the credit belongs to the men and women who fought under my command, especially those who didn't return." "Of course," Brooks agreed. "Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. But now we must decide how to proceed. Ambassador Zathara has made a formal request to begin peace negotiations." The meeting that followed was intense, with various factions arguing for everything from unconditional surrender demands to immediate cessation of hostilities. Sarah listened silently until Brooks finally asked for her opinion. "Colonel Vega, you've faced the Council's forces directly. What do you recommend?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "The Council underestimated us catastrophically. That gives us leverage. But we shouldn't make the same mistake they did. I recommend we negotiate from strength, but avoid humiliation tactics. The goal should be a stable peace, not planting the seeds of the next war." Brooks nodded thoughtfully. "And what of their quarantine zones and resource restrictions?" "Those must end," Sarah said firmly. "Humanity cannot accept artificial constraints on our development or exploration. But we can offer technological exchange and mutual defense agreements in return." After further discussion, the Security Council largely adopted Sarah's recommendations. Negotiations would begin immediately, with humanity dictating the terms, but allowing the Council to maintain its dignity. 2 weeks later, Sarah found herself in the newly constructed Peace Hall in Geneva, witnessing the signing of what would come to be known as the Terran Accord. Representatives from all 12 Council species were present, with Zathara himself signing on behalf of the Vorak. The terms were transformative. The old Galactic Council was dissolved, replaced by the Terran Alliance, a new organization in which humanity would hold a permanent leadership position alongside the former Council races. Quarantine zones were abolished, resource restrictions lifted, and a comprehensive technology exchange program established. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah was surprised when Zathara approached her. "Colonel Vega," the ambassador said, his translator conveying a tone of respect. "I wish to convey my personal gratitude for your restraint during our conflict." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Restraint, ambassador? We destroyed your primary shipyard and crippled your military capabilities across multiple systems." "Yes," Zathara agreed, mandibles clicking softly. "But your forces consistently avoided civilian targets. Your weapons were designed to neutralize rather than destroy where possible. Even at Kepler Yard, you used technology that disabled rather than obliterated. The Council would not have shown such consideration." Sarah studied the alien's face, trying to read its unfamiliar expressions. "War is destructive enough without adding unnecessary cruelty. Ambassador, humanity fought to defend itself, not to exterminate its opponents." Zathara's inner eyelids blinked in what Sarah had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "Perhaps that is why you prevailed. The Council saw humans as technologically inferior, but failed to recognize your moral advantages. It is a lesson we would do well to remember." After the ceremony, President Brooks approached Sarah as she stood alone on a balcony overlooking Lake Geneva. "The Security Council has approved your promotion to General," Brooks announced without preamble. "And they've created a new position, Secretary of Defense for the Terran Alliance. The job is yours if you want it." Sarah gazed out over the peaceful waters, thinking of the soldiers who had died under her command, both in the recent conflict and during the Epsilon incident years earlier. She had carried their memory as a burden for so long, but now she found it transforming into something else, a responsibility to ensure their sacrifice led to something meaningful. "I'll accept on one condition," she said finally, "that our first priority is establishing joint research initiatives with former Council species. If we're going to prevent future conflicts, we need to understand each other better." Brooks smiled. "Already in progress. Dr. Yamamoto is heading the initiative. He's quite excited about collaborating with Vorak scientists on quantum field applications." 3 months later, Sarah stood at a podium in New Denver, addressing a mixed audience of humans and former Council species at the groundbreaking ceremony for the new Interspecies Research Center. "The war that brought us together was brief, but consequential," she told them. "It taught both sides valuable lessons about assumption and preparedness. Humanity learned that we are not alone in our capacity for strategic thinking and technological innovation. The former council races learned that technological superiority alone does not guarantee victory. She gestured to the architectural model displayed beside the podium, a striking structure designed collaboratively by human and alien architects. This center represents our shared future. Through understanding, we forge bonds stronger than any forged in conflict. Through cooperation, we achieve more than any species could alone. As she concluded her speech, Sarah noticed a young Vorak engineer placing the ceremonial first stone of the new building. The engineer looked up, catching her eye, and made the Vorak gesture of respect. "Though the war is over," the engineer said through his translator, addressing the crowd, "our greatest challenges and opportunities lie ahead." Sarah nodded in agreement, finally feeling the weight of past failures lifting from her shoulders. Humanity had been tested and had prevailed not through overwhelming destruction, but through preparation, innovation, and the moral courage to fight a war without losing sight of the peace that would follow. The Galactic Council had declared war on humanity, expecting an easy victory over a supposedly inferior species. Instead, they had encountered a civilization that had spent decades preparing for exactly such a confrontation. A civilization that fought not just to win, but to create a better future for all spacefaring species. As the ceremony concluded and the diverse crowd began to mingle, Sarah allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The path ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in her career, she was building something rather than preparing for its destruction. And that, she decided, was a victory worth fighting for.